Welcome to Power in Words, a safe and quiet space dedicated to uncovering the inspiration, strength, and positive energy that already exists within you. In a world that constantly demands our attention and asks us to be more, achieve more, and prove our worth, we often forget the simple miracle of our own presence. We have built this channel as a refuge, a place where you can pause, breathe, and remember who you are beneath the layers of expectation. Today, we are exploring a profoundly liberating truth spoken by the philosopher Alan Watts, who observed that the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, yet everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. You are here right now, listening to these words, perhaps carrying the heavy, invisible burdens of your day, your week, or even your entire life. I want you to know that in this exact moment, you do not need to perform, you do not need to impress anyone, and you do not need to justify your existence. We are simply taking this time together to unravel the tangled thoughts that keep us awake at night and to find our way back to the quiet center of our own lives. There is a deep and abiding peace available to us when we finally stop running from ourselves and begin to embrace the raw, unfiltered experience of simply being alive. From the moment we are old enough to understand the world around us, we are handed scripts written by generations past, told that life is a ladder we must constantly climb, or a heavy web of obligations we must flawlessly uphold. We are made to feel that we are constantly in danger of falling behind or letting others down if we dare to simply rest. We internalize the belief that our value is inextricably linked to our productivity, our status, and the tangible milestones we can display to others. This relentless pursuit creates a pervasive sense of inadequacy, a quiet but persistent whisper in the back of our minds suggesting that no matter what we do, we are fundamentally falling behind. We scroll through the carefully curated highlights of others' lives, absorbing their victories while sitting alone with our own private struggles. The psychological toll of this constant comparison is immense, breeding a profound sense of isolation and a chronic fear that we are somehow missing the secret to happiness that everyone else seems to have effortlessly mastered. We push ourselves to the brink of exhaustion, sacrificing our sleep, our peace, and our authentic desires on the altar of a culturally mandated version of success. But what if the very premise of this struggle is flawed? What if the frantic search for a grand external purpose is precisely what blinds us to the intrinsic beauty of our own unfolding narrative? As a consequence of this endless striving, we often encounter the shadow sides of our own ambition. We meet the fear of failure, that paralyzing force that convinces us to abandon our dreams before we even take the first step, simply to avoid the sting of potential disappointment. We wrestle with imposter feelings, standing in rooms we work tirelessly to enter, yet secretly terrified that we are frauds about to be exposed. These are not signs of brokenness, but rather the natural psychological responses of a mind trying to navigate an environment that values output over human health. We carry the weight of unfulfilled expectations, both our own and those projected onto us by the people we love. In the quiet hours of the night, when the distractions of the day fade away, we are often left alone with a profound sense of emptiness, wondering if this relentless cycle of effort and exhaustion is all there is. We question our choices, mourn our missed opportunities, and worry endlessly about a future that has not yet arrived. This anxiety is not a personal failure, but a collective symptom of a society that has forgotten how to be still. It is deeply human to feel lost in the noise, to feel overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of trying to figure out who you are supposed to be. The illusion we chase is the concept of arrival. We convince ourselves that there is a magical destination in the future where everything will finally make sense. We tell ourselves that when we get the promotion, when we find the perfect partner, when we achieve financial security, or when we finally fix all our perceived flaws, then we will be permitted to feel happy. We treat the present moment as a waiting room, a temporary and often frustrating obstacle to endure until our real life begins. Yet, as the writer Ralph Waldo Emerson wisely noted, we are always getting ready to live, but never living. This perpetual postponement of joy robs us of the only reality we ever truly possess, which is the exact moment we are in right now. The tragedy of the deferred life is that the finish line is a mirage. Once we reach a goal, the mind immediately sets its sights on the next horizon. The temporary satisfaction quickly evaporates, replaced once again by the familiar hunger for more. We must recognize this pattern not with harsh judgment, but with the gentle curiosity of someone waking up from a long dream. The psychological liberation begins the moment we realize that our worth is not contingent upon reaching some hypothetical endpoint. This is where the profound wisdom of Alan Watts becomes a lifeline. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is not a riddle to be solved, a test to be passed, or a competition to be won. It is an experience to be fully felt. Consider the quiet improbability of your own life. Out of the vast, silent stretches of time, you were formed, a breathing, feeling entity capable of absorbing the sudden warmth of morning light, the sharp scent of rain on dry earth, and the profound, heavy spectrum of human grief and joy. We forget that the simple act of drawing a breath, of feeling our heartbeat in our chest, is in itself an extraordinary phenomenon. We spend so much time searching for a grand, overarching purpose that we completely overlook the profound meaning embedded in the ordinary textures of our daily lives. Purpose is not necessarily a grand vocation or a legacy left behind, but rather the act of being entirely present while drinking a cup of coffee, listening to a friend without formulating a response, or walking through a park and actually noticing the color of the leaves. When we detach our sense of meaning from external achievements, we reclaim our autonomy. We realize that we are inherently valuable simply because we are here, participating in the beautiful dance of existence. Understanding this truth requires a fundamental shift in how we perceive our relationship with time and ourselves. We are taught to view ourselves as entities defined by productivity. But the deepest clinical insight reveals that our most profound suffering stems from the rejection of our present reality. When we constantly argue with what is, wishing we were further along, wishing we were someone else, or wishing our circumstances were different, we create a profound internal friction. True healing and growth do not emerge from a place of harsh discipline. They blossom in the soil of radical acceptance. Carl Rogers famously said that the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. This acceptance does not mean resignation or giving up on our aspirations. It means acknowledging our current state without conditions, offering ourselves the same compassion and understanding we would readily offer a dear friend in distress. It means looking at our fears, our doubts, and our perceived inadequacies and saying, I see you, you belong here too, but you do not define the entirety of who I am. Consider the nature of your silent struggles, the moments you have fallen, the times you have felt entirely defeated, the periods of profound loneliness where nobody seemed to understand the language of your pain. We often view these experiences as detours or mistakes in our narrative. However, the architecture of our resilience is built entirely upon these moments of fracture. A life lived fully is not a life devoid of pain or setbacks. It is a life where we allow ourselves to be broken open, only to rebuild ourselves with greater empathy, deeper wisdom, and a more expansive capacity to love. You are not falling behind because you are struggling. You are simply navigating the complex terrain of being human. Every time you have felt lost and somehow found your way back to the morning, you have demonstrated a quiet, immense strength that no one can take away from you. The goal is not to become invulnerable to the hardships of life, but to cultivate a resilient core that allows you to move through the world with an open heart, even when it is difficult. You do not need to be perfect to be worthy of your own life. Much of the journey toward embracing the simple meaning of being alive involves a process of subtraction rather than addition. We spend the first half of our lives accumulating identities, beliefs, and expectations handed down by our families, our cultures, and our societies. We build complex personas to protect ourselves from rejection and to secure a sense of belonging. But eventually, the weight of carrying all these heavy, borrowed identities becomes too exhausting to bear. The transition toward authentic living requires the courage to gently strip away everything that is not truly you. It is about letting go of the need to be the smartest, the most successful, the most attractive, or the most accommodating person in the room. It is about asking yourself, who am I when the applause stops? Who am I when I am not producing anything of measurable value? The answer is both terrifying and utterly liberating. You are a singular life unfolding, experiencing the world through a deeply personal lens, shaped by your own quiet histories and private triumphs, a perspective that has never existed before and will never exist again. When we allow ourselves to simply exist, we align ourselves with the gentle, persistent unfolding of the universe. We learn to trust the periods of winter in our lives, the times of dormancy and rest, knowing that they are necessary preparations for the eventual spring. We stop fighting the ebb and flow of our own energy and begin to move with the current of our lives rather than constantly swimming upstream against it. This shift in perspective softens the hard edges of our daily existence. It allows us to approach our responsibilities not as heavy burdens to be endured, but as opportunities to engage intimately with the world around us. In the quiet reality of everyday living, this shift changes everything. You begin to feel the actual warmth of the water on your hands as you wash the dishes, instead of anxiously mentally planning tomorrow. When a loved one speaks, you look deeply into their eyes and truly see them, rather than merely waiting for your turn to respond. And when you stumble, you instinctively offer yourself a moment of grace, recognizing that error is the raw material of human evolution. These seemingly small, insignificant moments are the actual substance of your life. They are not the filler between the main events. They are the main event itself. The philosopher Viktor Frankl taught us that meaning is found not in grand declarations, but in our daily responses to the situations life places before us. It is the attitude we choose to adopt when faced with inevitable suffering, the dignity we maintain in the face of adversity, and the quiet courage we summon to simply keep going when everything feels heavy. I want to give you permission today to release the monumental pressure you have placed upon your own shoulders. You are inherently worthy exactly as you are in this very second. Meaning is not a final destination you suddenly arrive at. It is the gentle, ongoing practice of returning to yourself. To simply remain awake, to keep breathing, and to stay present through the heavy seasons of this fleeting world is a quiet, enduring form of courage. If these gentle words brought you deep comfort today, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs it, and subscribing to Power in Words so we can continue this beautiful journey together as friends.